it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Director of R&D of Jigsaw, a unit of Google, Yasmin Green. I wanted music for you.
No music. I'm ill.
Great. So Yasmin is one of the most fascinating people, I think, that I know. And she's just coming off the Today Show, where she spent time this morning. And we're lucky to have her here. So first of all, for people who don't know, tell us about Jigsaw. What is Jigsaw?
Jigsaw is the part of Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, that looks at geopolitical challenges. So we were set up 5 years ago by Eric Schmidt, the then CEO of Google, when he was traveling around the world and noticing that there was this cyber spillover wherever he went. You know, there was this technology component to every real-world conflict or geopolitical issue. So he prophetically decided to set up a team that would be dedicated to developing technology to help. And of course, today there are, is it 3 billion people online? The next 3 billion people who come online over the next decade are coming online in parts of the world which have less protections for human rights, less rule of law, more censorship. So we really have to start thinking about developing an internet for them. One of our areas, we look at authoritarianism, different types of digital attack. One of the areas we look at is terrorism and violent extremism. And one of our projects came out of the last year's worth of research talking to ISIS defectors. I actually directed a research trip to Iraq where I spoke to dozens of former Arab and Kurdish defectors, so people who'd gone, trained as suicide bombers, and then fled the caliphate and could talk about the human experience and the role of technology within that, and really gave us ideas about how we could use Google's technology to prevent others falling prey to recruitment. And that essentially involved designing very sophisticated, targeted ads that identify individuals who are susceptible to ISIS's messaging, who are sympathetic, have some kind of positive sentiment towards ISIS. And it's interesting because most of us here have searched for ISIS or could search for ISIS, and we're not potential recruits. So the question we were asking in our interviews was, what distinguishes the online behavior of someone who's really sympathetic to an extremist group versus just the mainstream internet user who wants to find out more? And it turns out there are ways that you can distinguish between those audiences using keywords. So one of the girls that I spoke to who wanted to go at 13 to join the Islamic State, a Westerner.
Where was she from?
She was actually from Birmingham in the UK. And I was really excited to get a chance to speak with her to find out what could possibly possess a 13-year-old to want to go to join a terrorist group. And so I sat down and I said, tell me, what were you expecting? And she said, well, I thought I was going to go and live in the Islamic Disney World.
Right.
I was like, wow, how do you get that from the bloodshed and the sex slaves? And she said, I was just looking online at the stuff I like. I didn't look at the other stuff, I just looked at the stuff I like. And I thought, 13, so ignorant and so flawed. And then you realize that actually we all do that. We all go online and look for the stuff we like. Nobody, just in the same way in the physical world, I don't go to a party and think, that guy looks like a jerk. I'm going to go and chat to him all night. No, we're all looking for stuff that reinforces what we believe. So.
Right.
Anyway, so I said, when did you first hear about the internet? And she said, first hear about ISIS. And she said, on the BBC. And I said, I'm British, I love the BBC. So I said, oh, really? Tell me more about that. And she said, well, you can't trust anything the BBC says. So whatever they were saying about ISIS, I thought was the opposite.
Wow.
And wow, right? So it's interesting. If you look at the online search behavior of that slice of ISIS's audience that are susceptible to their messaging, you find that they want ISIS-produced content. They don't want BBC or CNN or things that we'd be satisfied with as information sources. They look at ISIS's production houses, so Furqan, Hayat, Al-Ittisam. So you can start. So we basically built a repository of thousands of keywords that help us identify individuals who are interested in ISIS. Design ads that were not moralistic. They were really genuinely trying to answer the questions that ISIS is posing around religious legitimacy, around their effectiveness as a governing body, around their military prowess. And we directed them to YouTube videos that counter the arguments that ISIS makes. Really quick sidebar about what it means that Iran blocks websites. There are many countries that are governed under Islamic law, or regions that are governed under Islamic law, where being a homosexual is a sin. And when it's the government running the country that's governing it under Sharia, it's a crime. But in Iran, it's not just a sin and a crime, it's actually a myth to be homosexual.
Really?
Because the government blocks any websites that have messaging around, especially positive messaging around LGBT issues.
Huh.
And the propaganda that they spread is that if you're a man who loves a man, you must be a trans woman. And it's so persistent, this messaging, that there are people in Iran who are gay and don't know that that's a concept. And they actually have, because the government gives free sex reassignment surgery, they actually have surgery and change their sex because of government propaganda and censorship. The challenge with online intimidation, hate, and harassment is that there's so much content that's created. We saw some of those stats from Dell. And when it's flagged, it needs to be reviewed. And it needs to be reviewed by humans because humans understand context. And you'll hear the word context a lot when we talk about the need to put thought and accuracy into reviews. Until recently, it was, really until right now, it's been true that we needed to rely on humans to do the reviews. So we couldn't necessarily get to all the content or get to it as fast as we'd like. But what's really promising, and I hope like some ray of light and promise for us at the end of the day, is advances in machine learning to understand exactly context. So it used to be the case that with automation, you would feed the machine rules, and then it could apply those rules in a kind of programmatic way. With machine learning and AI, you can now train algorithms on patterns so that they start to understand context. And actually, a pretty accessible example of this is we trained a bunch of algorithms on YouTube data of cats. And we didn't say a cat has pointed ears and whiskers and is furry. We didn't give it rules, we just gave it examples of cats and examples of non-cats. And then with incredibly high accuracy, the machines could then tell you whether a new video was a cat or not. Really cool. Kind of like, we don't fully know exactly how it works because we didn't give it the rule.
Right.
But it's a really like, profound advance in terms of the ability to understand speech in natural language programming. And with deep learning advances, we can teach the machines much faster. So the project that we've been working on, Conversation AI, for the last year is training algorithms with the goal of detecting hate and harassment. So building data sets that have labeled examples of hate and harassment, which is actually its own problem. That's not trivial to do. It doesn't exist already. Training the algorithms so that they can understand what patterns of hate and harassment are. And just to give you an example of the context point, as a techie, this is an example that I hold dear. Take the example of the word nerd. Like you'll hear at Google, "Yo, nerds, you want to go and watch the latest Star Wars movie?" Right? That's fine, and that's an endearing application of it. You'll also hear stories from the nerds at our work of like ways that the word nerd is used as an insult in a derogatory way. Like you're such a nerd, get lost. Machines can understand that nerd in each of those contexts means something different because they're trained on patterns, on whole sentences, even sometimes on paragraphs. So it's a really exciting potential here. It's at the research phases right now for us to automate and better deal with the volume of hate and harassment that's online. And maybe eventually down the line, even let communities set the tone themselves. Like there isn't a universal truth for what people want.
We're excited about the opportunity to share what we've learned over a very long period of time at ADL, the data that we've got about harassment in all its forms, and of course, in particular, in anti-Semitism, with Jigsaw, to make their conversation AI even more successful, which I think, as Yasmin said, will benefit really all of us. And I really applaud the work you're doing. Thank you very much, Yasmin.
Thank you.